the first thing you feel is the cold. Not the kind that pricks politely at your fingertips, but the kind that digs its nails deep into your bones and stays there. Welcome to your week in a medieval castle, where comfort is a rumor, warmth is a privilege, and survival is an art form. You wake in a chamber that smells faintly of smoke, sweat, and wet wool. The walls, thick as a modern bank vault, do little to stop the draft creeping through the arrow slits. You pull a blanket tighter around you, a coarse, scratchy thing stuffed with straw that seems to have ambitions of stabbing you in your sleep. A rooster crows somewhere in the courtyard, muffled by stone and distance, and your adventure begins. You are no noble here, just a humble guest or perhaps an unfortunate servant with duties that began before dawn. You swing your legs out of bed and your feet meet the freezing flagstones, colder than the heart of the castle steward who will soon demand you fetch water. The water, by the way, is a 20-minute walk away from the well in the outer bailey, and the bucket you'll use leaks slightly. Congratulations, you've survived minute 1. The castle around you stirs. You hear boots on stone, the clatter of pots, and the low murmur of people trying to make themselves useful before someone of higher rank notices they exist. Smoke snakes from the great hall's chimney. Breakfast is being prepared, barley gruel again. The cook, a woman with forearms like oak branches, shouts orders and stirs the cauldron with a stick the size of a spear. You sneak a taste when her back is turned. It tastes like someone boiled sadness with a hint of salt. Servants move through the corridors carrying wood and water. Their breath fogs in the air. The castle's heart beats slowly but steadily. Hammer on iron from the blacksmith's forge, the distant bark of a guard's dog, the splash of horses being watered in the stables. You pass through the great hall, where tapestries hang on the walls depicting hunting scenes, heroes, and stags, frozen forever in a world where everyone looks suspiciously clean. In truth, the hall smells of damp rushes, spilled ale, and unwashed humanity. You sit by the fire for a brief moment, greedily absorbing the heat until a night squire barks at you to move. Fire, after all, belongs to those with titles. Outside, the courtyard is a flurry of activity. Men carry sacks of grain from the granary, women scrub clothes at a trough of icy water, and children chase chickens that somehow always escape. You watch them work, realizing that in a castle, survival is collective. No one can live comfortably alone. The blacksmith nods as you pass, his face blackened with soot, his hammer rising and falling in a rhythm older than the walls themselves. He's making nails for the repair of the gatehouse, though he might also be crafting arrowheads if the Lord fears trouble nearby. And there is always trouble nearby. Around midday you hear the horn, one long note echoing through the courtyard. The Lord is awake. His chamber is on the upper floor, where sunlight actually reaches and where rugs soften the echo of footsteps. He emerges, dressed in fur and wool, his beard trimmed, his ring heavy. He walks with that slow confidence of someone who never has to fetch his own water. Servants bow, knights salute, and you pretend to look busy. His eyes sweep over his domain. This is his castle, his family's pride, his fortress against both enemy and weather. Lunch, dinner, they call it, is served in the great hall. Trenches of stale bread act as plates. Stew ladled thick with lentils and whatever creature was unlucky yesterday fills the air with a surprisingly pleasant aroma. The Lord eats first, then his household, then the servants. You sit at the far end of the hall, where the fire's warmth fades and the shadows grow. Conversation buzzes, news of a nearby village struck by sickness, rumors of bandits, talk of taxes that will crush both peasants and patients. You eat quietly, hoping no one asks why you've been staring too long at your food instead of devouring it. After the meal, the hall empties. Servants sweep, dogs scavenge the scraps, and you're sent to your assigned task, cleaning armor. The castle's armory smells of oil and rust. Helmets glint in the half-light, rows of chainmail hang like metal curtains, and swords rest in racks. Silent and expectant, you lift a breastplate. It's heavier than it looks. As you polish, you wonder about the men who wear these, how many never returned from the fields they're meant to defend. Steel, you realize, is both protection and prison. By late afternoon, the sky darkens prematurely, clouds rolling over the battlements. Winter days are brief and unforgiving. You're ordered to help carry logs into the hall. The castle's fires must never go out, not only for warmth but to keep damp from claiming the walls. Each log you lift feels like a personal insult from the forest. Your arms ache, but there's no room for complaint. The steward watches everything with hawk-like precision, tallying every crumb and stick. In a world of scarcity, control is power. Evening approaches with the toll of a bell. The castle shutters are closed, the outer gate barred. Inside, torches flicker and cast long shadows across the walls. The atmosphere shifts from labor to tension. Night is when fear breathes loudest. Outside those walls, wolves prowl and men far worse sometimes gather. You find yourself wondering how anyone ever slept soundly here. In the hall, the Lord hosts a small gathering. Music fills the air, a single lute, a flute, and voices rising in harmony. Ale flows. Laughter tries to drown out the cold, though it never quite succeeds. You sit near the edge, nursing a cup of weak ale, watching the nobles toast to victories long past. Their armor shines, their rings glitter, but behind their smiles lie the same worries everyone shares. hunger, illness, and the gnawing uncertainty of survival. When the celebration ends, you're ordered to clean again. The rushes on the floor are filthy, sticky with spilled drink and grease. You gather them up, replace them with new ones scented faintly with mint. A noblewoman passes you in the corridor. Her gown brushes against your sleeve. For a heartbeat, you glimpse the other side of castle life lace perfume and soft hands untouched by frost. Then she's gone, and you're back in the world of buckets and soot. Night deepens. You find your way back to your sleeping space, a corner near the kitchens where the warmth lingers faintly. The cook snores beside a pile of pots. You wrap yourself in your blanket and stare at the low ceiling. The castle groans as wind slides between the stones. You close your eyes, knowing that tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, until your week ends or your body gives up first. The next morning brings no mercy. The well has frozen overnight, and the steward demands water anyway. You and another servant spend an hour breaking the ice. Your hands raw and red. Your breath clouds before you like a ghost trying to escape. When you finally carry the buckets back, half the water sloshes out. The steward says nothing is silenced heavier than words. By the third day, you've begun to understand the rhythm of the castle. Everything revolves around survival and status. The kitchen fire is life itself, guarded fiercely by those who tend it. The blacksmith's forge is the castle's heartbeat. The chapel is its soul. Though the priest spends more time warning of sin than saving souls from frostbite, you attend morning prayers, kneeling on cold stone, your stomach growling. The priest's voice echoes, reminding everyone that suffering is holy. You're starting to suspect holiness is just another word for hunger. That afternoon, a messenger arrives on horseback, his cloak stiff with frost. He brings news from the border. Raiders have been spotted. The castle shifts instantly into a living organism of fear and preparation. Guards tighten watch, archers check their strings, and the Lord holds council in the tower room. You catch fragments of talk supplies, walls, who can be trusted. You realize then that a castle isn't just stone and mortar. It's a fragile promise of safety in a world built on threat. On the fourth night, the alarm bell rings. A false alarm. It turns out someone mistook a herd of deer for soldiers, but the fear it spreads is real enough. You stand on the ramparts, breath steaming, staring into the darkness beyond the moat. The snow glows faintly in the moonlight. The silence after the bell feels heavier than noise. For a moment, you imagine how terrifying real battle would be. Hear arrows hissing from the walls, boiling water poured on invaders, the screams echoing off stone. You grip the parapet and whisper a prayer you're not sure you believe in. By day 5, exhaustion sets in. Every movement feels slower. Your fingers are cracked from cold and labor. Yet strangely, you've adapted. You no longer flinch when shouted at. You move through the corridors like a ghost, invisible but necessary. You've learned which guards are kind enough to share scraps and which to avoid. You know where warmth hides a spot behind the kitchen wall, a shaft of sunlight that sneaks in at noon. Survival isn't just strength here, it's knowledge. The Lord's daughter passes through the hall that afternoon, her gown bright against the gloom. She glances your way not with interest, but with a sort of distant pity. You realize that even the nobility are prisoners here, bound by duty and fear. Castles, you think, are cages made of pride. On the 6th day, you wake before dawn, your body aching but your mind strangely clear. The castle hums quietly, the kind of stillness that comes before change. The cook hums a tune as she kneads bread. Outside, snow falls gently, cloaking the courtyard in white. You carry firewood to the chapel, your breath catching in the beauty of the scene. For a fleeting second, the castle doesn't seem cruel. It feels eternal, solid, serene, almost sacred. Then a shout breaks the spell. A child has slipped on ice, spilled a bucket of milk, and the steward's wrath returns the world to its usual misery. That evening, a storm howls through the valley. The walls tremble, shutters slam, and somewhere above, a roof beam cracks. People huddle by the fire. You listen to the wind roar, wondering if the stones themselves remember every winter they've endured. The Lord appears calm as ever, his fur cloak wrapped tight. The walls have stood for 100 years, he says to no one in particular. They will stand another. You're not so sure, but the faith in his voice warms more than the flames. Finally, the 7th day, dawn's gray, silent, and bitterly cold. You wake stiff, every joint protesting. The castle is quiet. The storm has passed, leaving a world reshaped by snow. The courtyard glitters under the pale sun. You step outside, your boots crunching on the frost. The air bites your lungs but tastes cleaner than anything you've breathed all week. The Lord stands on the battlements, staring out at his frozen domain. His breath drifts upward like smoke. You wonder what he's thinking: of wars fought, a family lost, of whether all this stone is worth the endless winter. You wonder if he feels trapped too, as you pack your few belongings, your blanket, your borrowed cloak, the splinters in your hands. You glance back at the castle. It looms, impenetrable and magnificent, a monument to human stubbornness. For all its cruelty, it protected you. For all its discomfort, it kept you alive. You survived a week in a medieval castle. You learned hunger, exhaustion, and humility. You felt the cold not as an enemy but as a constant companion. You discovered that survival here isn't about strength, it's about surrender. To the routine, to the stone, to the sheer, relentless will to endure. As you walk away through the snow, you look back one last time. The walls glow faintly in the sunrise, beautiful and brutal. And you realize something. The people who lived here didn't just survive the Middle Ages, they defined them. Could you survive another week? Maybe. But after what you've seen, you might never want to try.